Hello, I'm Branish in the booth. That must mean it's another Mind's Eye Theatre Storytellers Guide video type thing. So this is a wee video about keeping the game fresh. What to do on games night to make it feel a bit special. Now what I'm thinking about here is like your long running Chronicle game where you play them once a month in, month out. And I'm also thinking about sort of a Camarilla setting where a typical game might be an Elysium meeting. Often the keeper will organise it, or meant to organise it, more on later. Prince's Court, for example. And after a while, that could well cease to be an engaging game. Just because kind of familiarity breeds contempt, and ultimately, you know, if you're playing in a pub function room, that in itself could feel a bit stale and stuff as well. So what I thought I'd do is talk a bit about ways you can do to spruce that up, to change that up. A lot of this is about getting your players involved. Never think that you as a storyteller have to do everything. And I'm not even talking about getting assistance. You know, your players will surprise and delight you with loads of different ideas about what could do, what could happen, props and stuff. And so a lot of this video is about empowering players to get out there and get stuff done. Now I'm going to have a wee segue now about the use of Elysium in live role-playing games. So Elysium is the place where vampires have decreed that peace will reign, and there is going to be no overt masquerade breaches, no use of powers. As a live role-playing storyteller, what that does is gives you some locations in the city which would be great for your PCs to meet up with and have conversations between games. And where it's free from tests, discipline tests, violence, etc. So it's a great place to get players to set up and do some blue book and conversations, because you don't have to be there and it can just happen. So if there was like a Primogen meeting or whatever, it could be happening there and you don't have to worry about that. Now, I think it's a bit problematic for games. So for starters, if you are running your game based around a prince's court, it's a weak prince that can't keep his court in check and free from violence without having to resort to Elysium. Okay? So it doesn't have to be on Elysium. The other thing to think about is if your game is constantly at Elysium, what that means is there's a whole load of stuff that you kind of shouldn't be doing, or plot lines you can't throw in, or stuff that your players just can't do without breaching the Elysium there. So by having your game off Elysium, it allows you to explore a few different things that Elysium prevents you from doing. The other thing that I would often see is keepers of Elysium in games having rather elaborate security or metal detectors and stuff. And in a game which is called, I think it's called The Masquerade, Vampire the Masquerade, The Masquerade, it is called The Masquerade. In a game called Masquerade, you want your society of vampires will be doing as much as possible to stay hidden. You know, suddenly if you get these metal detectors into a hotel function room as you're coming in, the workmen will be thinking down the pub, you know what's really weird? You know the Radisson Blue? Yeah, I had to put some metal detectors and had to reinforce some metal walls. What's going on in there? What's that about? I've never had to do that before. So it's all the little people like that which would end up breaching the Masquerade. So yeah, your Elysium needs to be sort of just as normal and unassuming as possible. In my games, I'd always like the Elysiums to be maybe an art gallery. Certainly back home in Darlington, brilliant old library building, and there was a campaign to keep it a while ago. The Darlington Town Council's just absolutely gutted the cultural heritage of the town. Anyway, that's around for another day. I did my school work experience in the library. Brilliant building, loads of cool stuff. What they had was a public gallery space, and the kind of library section. And you'd often get like local artists or the photographer putting stuff up in the gallery. So that was one of our Elysiums, and that could be used to actually, if you wanted to physically meet other people, other characters between games, you could go and have a conversation in the gallery. Really, really kind of set. There's often nobody in there. Or the other thing is you could write into your background you were meeting somebody in Elysium and having a conversation. Whereas a game night, we could host whatever we wanted at games night, and we could do whatever we wanted. So if the prince wanted you to have some steam and maybe do something, maybe he's a bit pushing your humanity, the prince could. Now the other thing I'd want to put out there, keeping games fresh, is get each clan to host an evening. I say clan because often in live action roleplay, players default into sort of clans as their primary form of organisation. Now, depending on your clan spread in the city, this will often give you 6+ sessions organised by the players. And like I said, the players will surprise and delight and come up with all sorts of cool ideas of things they can do. From entertainment, sort of games, riddles, fighting pits, refreshments, how they're going to deal with refreshments, mortals, etc., locations, and that's in itself, knowing that your clan is going to be hosting an event in 2-3 months' time, sparks a load of downtime actions where they're looking for venues, scoping things out, organising things. Other clans might get in and try and ambush that and put it off kilter or put certain locations out of bounds to them. Again, this is the sort of stuff that you want your players competing with each other and interacting with each other as much as possible over, and getting one up on each other and celebrating the fact that they're screwing each other over. You know, you might need to do a bit of out of character coaching with your players about that and give them ideas and help them along. But that's cool. You know, it's your role as a storyteller, not just tell stories, but educate and help those players create the best cooperative game possible. And help with dressing as well. You know, you will have some props. Naturally, if you're a storyteller coming into a game, the game might have props. But if you want specific props as well, ask your players to bring stuff. It's easier if everybody brings a little than one person bringing a lot. And we talked about clans there for Camarilla setting with the Sabbat. Sabbat, I don't know why I pronounce it like that. With the Sabbat, get different packs to organise different things, or get different packs responsible for different festivals. I remember in one of the Sabbat games as part of our pack, jumped on the chance to organise the Festival of the Dead, for example, and organise the pack games and the Esbat stuff and all that cool stuff that went on. So we as players got to kind of plan that, like pinatas and stuff. And yeah, it was a really good game, really good working up to it, thinking about it. And I think if you give as much stuff to your players as possible, they will reward you in spades. So if we're thinking about monthly games, and obviously it's 12 months a year, boom, straight away you've got hosts for 6-7 of those months. And really engaging, which gives you a handful of days afterwards. Maybe the prince is going to specifically host something rather than be invited to all at once. So the top pick of the vampires yearly timetable would be whatever happens in midwinter when the nights are longest. Obviously, I'm UK perspective. I don't know how it works in different parts. Certainly over here, you know, it's getting dark in the middle of winter by 3:30, whereas in peak summer where I'm living in Scotland, you know, 11 o'clock, it's still not quite dark. You can still see maybe a sliver of sun on the horizon. And it's getting light again at 4 in the morning. So yeah, so Prince, so maybe it's a winter's ball. But talk to the player about what they want to happen, what they want to do, maybe just shake it up. And think about maybe plots and themes that they could help. And this is where you're helping interact with the prince on an outer character level. Perhaps they're going to run it like a Saturnalia where the roles are reversed. That was a Roman festival where the masters put on events for the slaves, and on the Saturnalia day the roles were reversed, so the masters were serving the slaves. Um, or perhaps, a Regency era prince might have players spending time with each other, but they've done like dance cards. So you're like, I really want to talk to that character tonight. Well, I'll need to put it on the dance card and organise it like that, and the harpies can have fun with all of that and, interacting with it. But yeah, talk to the prince about what that could be. Another idea could be a prince that wants their court to maybe unwind a bit and maybe be a bit more vampiric. There's an ancient British tradition where we used to grow apples, orchards for cider. It was called vassailing, which vassail is where a vampire lets go of everything. So in the vassailing, they'd often walk around the orchards in the village, pouring cider, drinking cider, singing revelry and stuff. So maybe that could be incorporated. Loads of really cool links there. So that gives you basically 7 or 8 months worth of player hosting out of 12. So each session, the beauty of that's going to be hosted by a clan, going to have a very strong theme for the evening. And like I say, you will probably need to give players a couple of months out of character, out of game notice to start getting ready and thinking about it, and they can have some meetings in game. But what else could you do for the other months? So things I've seen working, should things become so hot in the domain, you could have an Archon host a trial or even a conclave, depending on how your game fits into the world. Auction evenings, like an NPC with a whole series of items to auction and players with different boons and stuff, bidding and seeing what people are bidding for and interacting with each other can be a real good social game with rewards and resources. Some things that might take planning that you're not going to do all the time might be sort of like a wide game, almost like a mega game. Certainly when I did my Dark Age game, there was an event, an evening where there was going to be armed conflict. A military background was one of the backgrounds I had, and different player factions are motivated to go and do different things, and armies were on the march. So I had players in different parts of the room or different rooms, had a map for when they were planning their moves and armies, and it was a bit more structured like a mega game. But that was a really fun evening as well, and I think again some cheeky Malkavians went and burnt some longships, and I remember some like Zweihander mercenaries coming over, and yeah, loads of cool stuff happening. I've done something similar with a Sabbat, sort of attacking a city. Another event I've run, certainly from this was a Sabbat independent game, was a Sabbat pushing into an area and there was a strong Giovanni presence in the area, and the two factions had arranged a summit meeting. So I think there were 3 or 4 Sabbat packs in the domain. So I got 2 of them to go to the summit meeting as the kind of bishop or archbishop's guard. And then what we did with the other packs was they were playing sort of Giovanni and allied NPCs. So there was a summit that people met and actually devolved into some fight and combat. But that was an interesting thing, getting some of your players to be part of the group and some of the players to be the NPCs. I did the same in tabletop where one of the players became a Primogen, so we had a Primogen meeting. So the rest of the players played different Primogen with briefs and kind of a rough idea of how they would fall in certain conversations, and the new player being a Primogen went along and interacted with those NPCs, which was really fun. A mystery evening. There's loads of ideas out there for how to host a mystery evening, and you just get those and adapt it to whatever vampire. Like I say, it could be a clue, puzzle, riddle, whatever, murder, like kind of murder mystery, but you've obviously got your players on the ground. I've just put weird shizzle for this one. If you want to do something crazy and out there, once in a blue moon, do it. I've done all sorts where players have been sucked into a Malkavian Methuselah's dreamscape, and actually that's quite cool because we had a downstairs cellar, so I was able to take players down into the cellar away from the main game. We also did a kind of a part of the Chronicle but not part of the Chronicle game, which was called a Barley Christmas, where some Barley came and did some Christmas games and we shizzle. We'll turn off the lights and there was an abyss thing happening, and anyway. Um, if you know your numbers are going to be down, if you think about size of game, this what you don't want is a big game devolving into multiple combat, because multiple combat slows down and you get people on the periphery, and it's never quite as exciting as what you feel it's going to be. But if numbers are going to be down for whatever reason, that could be a time when you run something a bit more action orientated, like hunters escaping hunters, or a werewolf is happening in town, so you need to go. So instead of having your venue set up as the venue, your venue is going to be different locations around town and stuff that your players can go to and move and do scenes. Having extra narrators and storytellers really help you do that on the ground. And finally, if we're looking at 12 games a year, why not have a social game? Summer, if you're talking about vampire, summer, when you've virtually got a tiny sliver of darkness while the pubs are open, have a social event. Maybe incorporate an AGM, get to know each other, chat out a character, create those friendships, and really make it a cooperative game, which is both you and the other players and all the other storytellers working just to create a really cool environment and game. So hopefully some of those ideas gets the juices flowing. Like I said, it's been based around Camarilla stuff. You can do a load of different stuff with different factions and Sabbat and Anarchs and stuff like that. You might want things to be a bit more raucous with those and a bit more sedate with the Camarilla. So think about the theme and the tones you want to get. And like I said, don't be afraid to shake things up by getting a portion of your players to be NPCs for the PCs that you've got, because you suddenly have a load more characters interaction than what you'd originally planned. But anyway, there's a few thoughts for how you can keep the game fresh and think about games nights and stuff. Get players involved in hosting events and doing a lot of the hard work so you don't have to. That's a trick of storytelling, making yourself as little work as possible for maximum effect. But what have you seen work? What has floated your boat? What ideas have you got that you can bring to the table? I'd love to hear them. Do put them in the comments section, and look forward to chatting to you again, where we've got loads more videos coming on Mind's Eye Theatre storytelling stuff. So anyway, have a good one, and I'll catch you again. Bye bye.